it on this computer.
All right.
Good?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so welcome everybody. My name on this YouTube channel anyway is Queen Mab. That's not my real name, but I don't want my students to find this. And I'm very excited today because I have my first interview guest, Mr. Johnathan Clouser. He's an actor. Welcome to the show. He lives in LA, and I'm just really excited today to talk to him. So Johnathan, let's start with, tell us your story.
Okay, well, I was born in Texas and I stayed there till I was 7. That's Galveston, Texas. It's an island just near the Gulf of Mexico.
Right.
And when I was 7, my mom decided to move to New Jersey. I was there for many years. And then, going through middle school and high school, not too much happened, nothing that I want to share right now, but once I went to community college, when I was 19 years old, I started I didn't immediately go into acting. I started game design because my entire life I always been a huge gamer. And at that time I was sort of interested in acting as well because there was this show called Degrassi, which was my real high school experience, because I didn't have the great experience that these characters had, but I would live vicariously through him. And that's when sort of the itch started to happen. But I was like, can I really be an actor? I don't even know how to go about doing it. And that was, I'm not going to say what time it was, but it was basically not now, where you have all these avenues and all these platforms for you to act and just put yourself out there. So I didn't know how to do it. So I was just like, what am I going to pursue now? I don't just want to do the things that I want to do. And I'm referring to college. I want to meet people with similar interests, to like-minded people. So I'm like, is it going to be acting or is it going to be game design? And I chose game design because I didn't know anything about acting. And I just, gaming was more that world. And I love the game design, except the math stuff. I I did so bad in math. I failed the same math class like 4 times. That's how bad. And it was pre-calculus. But when I was there, I dabbled in theater. I'm like, you know what? Something happened. And I was a very shy kid, but something happened where I wasn't scared of being on stage anymore. And I sort of just snuck in, sort of just appeared in this acting class, and I was back there in the audience, and I was watching everyone acting. It's like, hey, you, what are you doing there? It's like, I'm like, oh, well, I was just watching. I thought about, going into this class, but I'm not sure. It's like, hey, why don't you get up here, get up here and and show me some stuff. So I acted along in the acting exercise, and that moment was when I knew that acting is something that I really wanted to do, and I had to do it. So from there, I took fine arts as a minor, and I started acting more and more. I was doing student films, and I had a few drama classes, and it just kept going from there. Now, because of my failed math, I didn't get my associate's degree in applied science, but eventually I ended up moving to North Carolina because my mom had to, that was just her decision, and I couldn't hack it on my own. Even as an adult, I didn't really have any really practical skills. So I went with her in North Carolina. And I mean, before that, I did do some shows, and I did one show in Mountain Burn in New York. But really, when I went to North Carolina, that's when things really changed for me, because I found myself a community theater. That would be the Gilbert Theater in Fayetteville. And that, I started off as an understudy, but it ended up being they made me into like a background character for this play, which kind of doesn't happen. It's they don't typically have background characters. They have ensemble, but and then I started getting better roles. And then my ego started to get better, bigger, right? Because like I have a leading role in community theater. I'm the right. But then I ended up through community theater. I found out about, you know, this group called Sweet Tea Shakespeare, who does, they all classical stuff, mostly, pretty much. And then they told me about this scholarship at Fayetteville State University. So I went into their theater program, and they have a really strong program. They teach you the art and the craft, and they do really good work, and you will work in that program. So I'm not saying it's for the faint of heart, and they definitely don't want to make it too hard on you, but they expect a lot from you. And I feel like in that program, I really learned a lot. And after I got my bachelor's degree in theater, I'm like, what am I going to what am I going to do? I'm out of school. I'm in like the middle of nowhere, North Carolina now. And I was very depressed. My mom ended up moving back to New Jersey because she moves around a lot. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm close to New York now. Maybe I can get something going there. I'm in South Jersey, nowhere near New York. And I wasn't giving any leverage or any avenue. I didn't have much stability at home despite living with my parents. So I ended up saying, forget this. I'm moving back to North Carolina. I'm going to see what I can do on my own, because I can't, and no offense, I love my mom. I can't deal with the instability. I have no foundation to make anything happen. And then it's like, I'm in the middle of nowhere phase again. What am I doing with myself? So I just said, um, I, I just really thought about it. I didn't want to go back to school, but I'm like, I have to do something. So I remember the New York Film Academy. I found out about them when I was auditioning in New York City, and I was going to go for the master's program. They didn't have one in New York. They had one in LA, and that's how it all started. I applied. I got some friends. They reached out to me. I reached out to them, and they let me do my audition to get into the school. I thought it was terrible, but they liked it. and and then I was in New York Film Academy. So from there, and I went to school. It's the audition, the orientation process. It was great. It changed. It was amazing for me because I'd never been to LA, and not that I felt like I was starry-eyed and just oh, Hollywood, but it it was definitely a big step because I'd never been 100% on my own. And it's in the place that, it's a place you think of when you think of, okay, I want to be an actor. And overall, going through the school, it was a great experience. There were some struggles. There were times where I cried. There were times where it's like, how do I have this many assignments in this little time to do anything? I didn't see much of LA. And once my load starting to lighten up a bit, quarantine happened. And quarantine, it was really devastating because I was in the middle of doing a play. And the the play did happen, but it was really a struggle. And this COVID, at the time, I didn't take it too seriously. This is before quarantine happened, because I'm like, most of the things you hear, whether it's like the avian flu or SARS or this or Ebola and all this stuff, I'm not saying I didn't care, but I was just saying like, okay, well, I just expected these things to resolve. It's like I hear about it in the news, and the next minute I don't, and things go back to normal. Obviously, that didn't happen. And
Yeah.
so I'm doing the play, and it's everything. The play is just, we are so close to opening night, and things aren't where they are, and I get so stressed out. And the things that I have me and my stage manager, and then towards the end we had somebody who was actually this, I forget what you call them, the stage technician or something, the one that helped build the set. But mostly it was me and my stage manager doing the bulk of the work. I mean, she had more like 70-80%, but that 20% was a lot to me. And I'm like, how are we going to do this? And she's frustrated at me, and I'm not very organized person. I'm like, I don't know. And then it finally came together. The day it opened, it's raining, and I usually like the rain, but it was pouring down, and California doesn't really rain. And it was just like in the day before opening day on Sunday, or I don't know if it was the day before opening day, but like during the week of the show, Mark Crowley, because I was doing the boys in the band, that's what the play was. He had passed away, and I'm like, all these bad omens. So I'm just like, look, this has to happen. And then I find out the day of that we're not going to get a second show. They will lit us. They are letting us do this show the one time, and that's it. But we can't do a second one. It's everything's on lockdown over. So anyway, skipping ahead, I do that. Things are on Zoom, and that's makes it a struggle. My thesis film was a struggle. I mean, it was somewhat easy just because I could control a lot more, and I didn't have to do as much and make it fully fledged. But I had to do pretty much everything. I couldn't get people to edit. I couldn't get people to do this and that. So it was still a struggle. But after everything came together, finished the rest of my classes, graduated, and a huge weight was lifted off of my shoulders. And then it became, now what? So after graduating from New York Film Academy, getting my master's degree in acting for film, I trying to figure out what to do. And what people love to ask me as an artist is, what do I want to do? That's not the right question to ask me. I mean, I get it. It comes from a good place. But if I were to tell you what I want to do, first of all, there's a list ridiculously long. And, obviously I want to be an actor. I'm an actor, writer, and content creator. I probably should have said that at the beginning. But so I want to act, write, and content create. I'm also a huge gamer. That's as a bigger part of my life as anything. I'm also love fitness and keep my body in shape, which I haven't been so great with lately. But and that's just a couple things. But as it pertains to acting, people are like, well, what type of roles do you want to play? I'm like, uh, it's not that I don't know, but I will say I want to play this. And they're like, well, pick one thing. And I'm like, well, I don't know. Like,
pick one thing. Isn't that an awful question? I
yeah.
hate, or not question, that's a statement, but I get that a lot too. Pick something. And it's like,
And I get it. These people who have had way more experience than me in the business are telling you how the business looks at you, and they want to put you in categories. And I'm aware of that. And I can work with that, because I want to be successful. But a lot of people, not here's what I'm getting at. And I sort of just lost the thought that, there was this point in time where I almost threw my hands up and say, you know what, forget auditioning for all these people that I want to reach out to them. They don't even see me audition. Or forget this. I'm going to write the movies that I want to be in. I'm going to just stay in front of a computer and content create. I'm going to do this. And I'm just like, now, wait a minute. I think that's masturbation. Like I will, I
Whoa,
will,
whoa. Okay, tell me more about that. Why would you say
because
that creating your content is masturbation?
no, not creating my content, because I think, as an artist, you want to express yourself. And I think any way
Right.
you want to express yourself, that's true art. But I really want to grow. And that
Mm,
requires me to work with other people and
mm-hmm,
also be the vessel to help create their vision as
mm,
well. So that's the thing in terms of just
mm-hmm,
personal happiness and doing what I want to do and being true to myself. Yeah, my art my rules, my way, awesome. But I also want to just grow it. I can't be just left to my own devices if I really want to grow as much as I can.
Hmm.
So
Okay. Okay. I hear that balance between working with others, playing the game in the business, and then doing the stuff that makes you happy. And that's it's a tough balance to strike for sure.
yeah, yeah. I'm sorry if I used a word that I wasn't supposed to use.
Oh no, no, dude, whatever. It's all good. Even if my students
um,
find it, I'm sure they know what that is. But there was something I wanted to ask you about that I found really fascinating about your story, and that was that you went from an interest in video games and gaming to an interest in acting. And that's kind of an interesting bridge that I don't really hear very often. And is there more that you can tell me about that? How you went from one to the other?
well, yeah. Well, so like I said, video games, it goes back to childhood. But
Hmm.
before video games, I was like a huge couch potato as a kid. Like I loved movies and shows. I didn't just like to watch them. I like to talk about. I was that kid like, oh, there was this part in the movie where this thing happened, and then that happened. And what do you think about this? And people look at me crazy, like, are you why are you talking, why are you saying all this, just watch the movie. and and then when I discovered video games, I was really into that and movies and shows. And the thing is, I look at these characters and these stories, and I want to be a part of them. I want to tell these
Mm,
stories. I want to be the character in the stories. I don't just want to live vicariously through these characters and themes and narratives. I want to be part of it. So I'm just creative like that. And video games, that's interactive art. You can be the character, and it's empowering in a way. And not to just get too off track, but you know, I love gaming and stuff like that. But the weakness to it is, and I'm not saying anything bad about gaming, the drawback to it is that world is so fun and immersive because you have control. You have
hmm.
control. Like, the game is designed for you to succeed. So it's easy to get lost in it. It may be hard. You may die a million times. You may be garbage at it. That game is set up for you to succeed. All you got to do is get better. And if you're not that confident in your skill and you want to have fun, lower the difficulty. You go from hard, put it on easy mode. It's if you're playing against an actual person that's destroying you, well, all you got to do to beat them is get skill. It's there's so much you control. Life, I mean, it's not like that.
Hmm.
It's can I look at it as a game in a sense, but everybody's playing with different rules, and it's
Hmm.
not a plus B equals C thing. So I don't know how well I answered the question of how did I translate the acting, but I'm just a creative person that loves to immerse myself in the worlds that I like to observe and consume.
Mm. Well,
You
that
know,
was what I heard. I heard that for you, in a lot of ways, it's about the story, right? That's what you like about the games, and that's also what you like about the acting. And I think that's cool. You talk about immersing yourself in that world. Two questions came to mind. I'm going to ask the first one is like the easy one, and then I'll do the more
okay,
complicated one. What
sure.
kinds of games do you like to play? Like, what do you recommend? Because I'd love to get immersed in these worlds you're telling me about.
Okay, well, I have a couple favorite genres, like two, three. So, fighting games. Now that's simple and straightforward. You pick a character and you beat the other character up.
Right.
And I like, and I'm sort of a competitive person, so it's right up my alley. And I just like it. It drives you to keep improving yourself. The other
So,
thing
like,
is
which ones? Which
like
fighting games?
which fighting games?
Yeah.
Smash Brothers is a big one, though
Oh,
people debate
nice.
if that's actually a real fighting game. I also like the standard Street Fighter,
I was
Tekken,
gonna
Mortal
say
Kombat.
Street Fighter, but I was like, am I dating myself if I talk about Street Fighter?
I also like Mortal Kombat. I mean, there's so many fighting games that I like. Um, Now also RPGs. That's a big one because RPGs, in case you don't know, role-playing game.
Role
That's
playing
what
games. Oh, I know.
and I like that because you get to level up and constantly improve your character. They put a lot of care into the story and things like that. And it's very much character based. And I don't just play video games. I play tabletop role playing games like Dungeons and Dragons and things like that. I like to build my character, improve them, and just get kind of lost in the story. So those are two big genres that I really like.
That's awesome. My brother used to play this game called Assassin's Creed. Do you know this
Oh yeah.
game? Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I know that.
I used to always come in the living room and he'd be playing this game and I was like, and they've got all these details and we already talked about masturbation, so we might as well talk about horrors. There's horrors in those games and things like that. And I would see my
Yeah.
brother play this game and I'd be like, wow, like that looks like so much fun. And I'd rather be doing that than like living in this world. So I hear what you're saying about getting lost in it because you have
Yeah.
control, right? So
And I love it, and I have no shame in playing games, but careful now because it can be so addictive. Like, oh, my life is like a big mess, but in like Grand Theft Auto, I have like 10 mansions and cars I could never afford. You
That's
know,
funny. Yeah, so you got to walk that line.
yeah, definitely. But I mean, but that's the case with anything. If you have more than one love or passion, you've got to put the right amount of care and at the right time to make your life balanced. And sometimes if you have a lot of things that you're into, like me, one thing gets more weight than the other. It's like just be careful in balancing your life.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a challenge for sure. It's a challenge. That leads me to the other question that I wanted to ask you, kind of about another interest that you've talked about. So I was checking out your YouTube, and you
yeah.
have this hilarious video about the guy who gets eaten by the raptor in
Uh,
Jurassic Park. I'm going to make sure there's a link so all the people that are watching can see this video because it's so funny. And you talk about your love of Jurassic Park, which, by the way, I also love. And I feel
okay.
relieved because you're younger than me and you still know what Jurassic Park is. So, whew, but tell us about like why you love
But
that movie and like how you decided to make that video.
okay. So that was Lost World Jurassic Park.
Lost World. Okay.
The original Jurassic Park is my favorite movie because it I mean, I loved animals as a kid and I loved dinosaurs, but
Mm-hmm.
this movie was I looked at these things and I'm like, this is real. Like because the dinosaurs, they look so realistic, and they told a story that like a 6-year-old can understand. At least I understood it. So I'm like, oh, all they have to do is just take the blood out of mosquitoes and then like do a bunch of other sciencey stuff, and then now you have dinosaurs. Like I totally understand this at 6 years old. And I'm like, this could definitely be real. So it made me forget when I was watching it, like that this is basically impossible science. But I'm like, it feels so real. And that's I think the key to anything, art wise. It makes it feel real. It's truthful in a way. So it just pulled me in. And then obviously, the action and all the cool stuff that happens, giant T-Rexes, and got these cool over the top characters like Ian Malcolm
Ian Malcolm. Yep.
and, and a bunch of cool kids in there. I thought the guy I Michael I forget his name, Eric something, but the one who played the little kid, I thought
Uh-huh.
he was the coolest kid when I was a kid. I was like, I want to be that kid. I
Yeah.
want to
I
be
wanted to be the girl who's the hacker. I was like, oh, I want to be a
yeah,
hacker. Yeah.
yeah. Um, that was such a great movie. Nothing tops it. Now the other movies afterwards, I don't think were as good, but I didn't think they were bad. And Lost World, I've seen that movie so many times, and I always go back to that scene where they're in the tall grass, and they're like, and then the guy's like, "Don't go in the long grass," and they got to go through it, and all the raptors are hunting them, and the one guy, he turns and he sees the raptor and he's like, ah, and I'm like, it's and I'm like, it's so funny because it's so appropriate. Like, what does your brain do when you see a giant raptor? It's like you're not Jason Bourne. You're not gonna just sidestep him as soon as you see that. It's just like your brain is doing, you have never experienced this before. And I think that guy, I don't know who he is, but I think the people should know.
He needs to have an Instagram.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so another, okay, again, two questions. We'll probably get to both of them. The first one is I wanted to go back to when you were back at community college and you were starting to get interested in acting, and you would go to that acting class, right? And you
Yeah.
would sit there, and then one day the teacher's like, "Hey, want to join?" And
Yeah.
that was so interesting to me because as a teacher, I often see like the quiet kid. And it's such a hard call as a teacher to know, okay, when do I just like let that kid be quiet? And when do I invite that kid to participate? And I was wondering if there was anything about like the way that teacher asked you or like where you were in your own process that made you finally say, okay, I'm going to do this.
Well, it happened the first day, so it wasn't like a thing that just kept going on. The teacher, he very much had this old school type of way. Very much like it's like what you see in the movies. Hey, you there? You look like you know stuff about stuff. You do that, and I think I was hoping for it. I
Mm,
was I was hoping that he would say it's okay for me to join them, because me being already a major in game design, it's like I wanted permission. And I'd say that's one of the weaknesses that I have. I always want permission for things, because I'm kind of on the fence, and I need someone to push me to either side. Maybe in your heart you really know what you really want to do or should do, but there's that other thing, that anxiety from the other side that's keeping you from doing it. So I really wanted him to be invited in, and he pulled me in there.
that's
There really
cool.
wasn't much
Okay,
of a
so
question.
he I guess he read you accurately then that you wanted to do it. And that's
Yeah,
that's cool that he gave you that permission. I know what you're talking about, by the way, the needing permission, because I'm thinking if I decide to do it, it must not be a good idea. Someone else
yeah.
has to tell me that it's okay.
And by the way, the acting teacher, in case anyone knows him, is Agin Koma. He has, I don't know what he's doing right now at this moment, but he's a seasoned actor, has plenty of credits under his belt.
Awesome. That's cool. And so it's cool, even cooler that this person who had this intuition to give you permission was also someone who had that background and that street cred. Like that's, I bet that was a big deal for you, for him to be like, let's
Ye-
go.
Yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. So my next question for you is about, we talked earlier about that annoying question, like, if you could do anything that you dreamed of, like what would you be doing? And then, whatever answer we give, it's always like, oh, but you have to pick something. So
Yeah.
I want to try a different take on that question, which is, you've talked about creating worlds. What kind of worlds would you like to create?
Okay, well, I am really attached to sci-fi, horror, and fantasy.
Mm,
Not that the more realistic grounding stuff is bad, because I love all of that stuff, but sci-fi, horror, and fantasy, I don't know, something about that is just something that pulls me in. Maybe it's the fantasy of, you know, anything can happen, and there's always that chosen hero. So the regular guy that wasn't ready for any of this stuff, or girl, just or anything, they get pulled into this world, and it's like it they get taken into this adventure. And like, I love the never ending story, page master, like anything that's like, you have this grand, because everyone is the hero of their own story in real life,
hmm
and they want that. um and it's very much an amazing sort of surreal thing when things start happening to you. So, and I always want to be that. I want to explore this adventurous side that I know that's inside of me. And when it comes to sci-fi, the thing with that is it's it sort of grounds everything in a reality, because what makes something sci-fi is all the crazy, unbelievable things that happen in fantasy happen in sci-fi as well, but they explain it through science, and it's more real. It's like it's basically magic, but it's science. And that idea of we can get to something amazing where we have flying cars, where everything we have holograms on everything, or where something that was impossible, like dinosaurs existing, whether that's a good idea or not, it's a terrible idea, but it can happen because the science gives it the possibility of happening. And now horror, that is something that can fall into many different categories. It can be something realistic, it can be something sci-fi or fantasy. But the cool thing about horror is I feel like it's a safe way to explore something unsafe. You know,
Mm.
it's it's like being on a roller coaster, which I'm not a big fan of roller
No, me
coasters,
either.
but but it's something like that. You can explore that dark side, that side of you, whether there's a dark side of you, or just explore a situation that you never want to be in, but you can sort of explore it through horror, and it kind of makes you feel alive by just it. They're dealing with something. Okay, this can kill you, this dangerous situation. It puts fear in you, but you're watching it on a TV screen, so you can kind of just you're safe from that, more or less. A lot of people don't like horror films, and I totally
Yeah,
get it.
that's me. That's me. I'm like, I'll just watch the news if I want to be scared. But I'd never thought of it the way you just said, like making something unsafe to explore kind of safe. That's interesting.
Yeah. And by the way, I cannot watch the news. I can't stomach it. Sometimes I end up watching it and then I regret it. But anyway.
Yeah, no, I
Mm-mm.
same, same. So I'm interested to know because you told me that you're working on some projects right now. Like I think you mentioned a short film
Right.
and things like that. What do you have going on right now?
The short film, it's in the second draft. If I wanted to film it right now, I could, and people would be scratching out the typos, and maybe I would have a few things that I might want to change, but basically it's an 11-page full-fledged short film that I have written, and it's a comedy. It's pretty raunchy. Some people have read it, and I generally have good responses. One person is like, "Oh, is this a comedy?" I think they were a little bit too offended, but I don't. I talked to a friend who's very aware of certain things. He's like, "This is the exact right level of offensive. It's right on that little line where I don't think it's problematic, but it's like right below that line."
Wow,
It's
so what's it about? Now I want to know.
well, it's essentially about and I'm terrible at the pitch, but like it's essentially about one kid spills accidentally is walking and spills his entire lunch tray on this girl, and she, being like the school bully, wants to fight him after school. And he's
Mm.
trying that entire day to avoid that fight from happening, but nothing is seeming to work. So
Wow. I like that. And that's interesting because you just talked about, sci-fi, fantasy, horror, all these things. And then this thing that you've written, it's taking place within this world.
yeah, it is kind of funny. I never thought of it that way. I think that my sci-fi and fantasy stories are very grand. So I don't know how well I would contextual just condense them into a short film, but I never thought about that.
Hmm.
Um, but a couple other things that I'm working on. I am working on here what I want to see in most of my work, in the work today that other people do. I want to see more. I want to see more queer films and more queer shows, because I'm a queer person myself, and I don't have any label whatsoever. But I think that I think Hollywood, I'm just going to say it. I think Hollywood is too straight and too white. I'm
Hmm.
sorry.
No,
Like,
nothing to be sorry for. It's true.
and and it's funny, like, I think there could definitely be some queer fantasies and queer horror films and queer sci-fi films. But right now, the world, the market is so small for the LGBTQI plus community that they kind of fit into their own genre, which I think is great that we have that now. But branch off into other things, and there is a queer fantasy actually too that I'm working on right now, and I want to write a little each day, and that's going to take a little bit of time.
Hmm.
um so the two features, one feature I'm going to focus on right now, and then the short film that I'm trying to do something, I'm sorry, I'm trying to do something with, are the two major things. And there's also this thing that I'm going to be doing on my YouTube page. I cannot talk about it because it will give it away. But I could tell you, after this. But if I talk about it now, it's going to give it away. But once I do it, it's going to be this huge undertaking that's going to take a lot of. Okay, well, I could just say kind of what it is. It's a challenge. It's a challenge, but it's not going to be a challenge that's going to end up getting someone hurt or killed. I mean, these
Okay.
challenges are getting out of control, but it's a challenge, and that I'm going to put out there for people, and it's also going to be a challenge for myself. I can't talk about what it is because it'll totally give it away. But that's one big thing that I'm going to do. So what I'm going to do with my YouTube page, I probably might show this on Instagram too, yeah. And my short film that I have to figure out what I'm going to do with, and touch it up a little bit in the feature. The feature is also something ideally that once I write it, I don't just put it out there as a feature film, but I'm thinking of staging it first, because there's a lot of venues and opportunities to do something. Well, I got to double check on that because COVID and
Right.
everything,
Right.
right? But if I get this story out there, I'm very confident that people will love it and get behind it. So those are the
Awesome.
big things I'm working on right now.
Okay, so the mystery YouTube challenge and the feature and your short film. That's a lot. You got a lot going on.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Oh, go ahead.
And one last thing in regards to that, I'm still acting right now. There's a million areas of my life that need fixing, so I'm kind of working at that. I am set up with a company with some background work, but um I'm trying to work on things like I got to update my headshot. I have to get various things with my life situated, like getting a, a day job, for example, to sort of make things work. But that's still there too, 100%.
Well, and I think those things, like I know what you're talking about because we all have those things, like those areas that need fixing. I just think I really get excited when people are working on the kinds of things you're working on, even though all those other small alligators are biting. You know what I'm saying? So that's really cool, especially in these crazy times. So I hope you'll keep me posted on what you're doing, and I look forward to the next time I interview you, which is going to be about your YouTube challenge. You can tell
Oh,
everybody, you can give
yeah.
us all the
I'll
details
give
because
you
we're
all
all
the
dying to
details.
hear what you're going to do. So tell folks where they can find you, like on the internet, on Instagram, on Facebook, your preferred methods of talking to
Okay.
folks.
So my preferred methods of you reaching out to me are, you can find me on Instagram. It's Johnathan, Johnathan dot Clouser, Clouser. definitely want to make it something shorter, but but that's my Instagram. And my YouTube, my name on YouTube is this Johnathan Clouser. Same as mine, Jonathan, Johnathan. And but the thing is now, I, because of YouTube, because I made my name a long time ago, I can't change it until I get 100 subscribers. So subscribe
Uh,
now. But my name is actually Zekersaurus Rex.
Zeker. So yeah, I think that's where I watched the awesome raptor video.
So Zekersaurus uh RUS
Yep.
at Rex, REX at YouTube. It's on YouTube.
It's on YouTube. Okay. And what I'll do is I'll put links so people can find it.
Oh yeah,
And
please put links because we're
yeah,
we're 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 recording on Zoom right now, but I forget this is going to be a whole YouTube video.
yeah.
So,
So I'll put
I
that
may have
there.
botched everything, my own YouTube, my own name, whatever. But you can see the links below. So
Awesome. Okay, very, very cool. Well, Johnathan, I really appreciate you hanging out with me today. And I'm gonna be thinking about worlds all day long. And I hope that everybody else will too. And yeah, thanks for being on the show.
thanks for having me.
Okay.
All right.